Well, a lot of uncertainty over the past year when it comes to the U.S. economy. For more on that, I'm joined live via Skype by William Cohan. He's a special correspondent for Vanity Fair and an American business writer. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
So looking at how the past year played out for U.S. businesses and their losses, was it in line with what you're expecting or perhaps worse?
Well, I think, look, a year ago, nobody knew what was going to happen. I think there was fear, there was panic. That fear and panic quickly metastasized into the financial markets, into the capital markets. And so for much of March, people were panicking. The stock market fell dramatically. Bond prices fell. The yields rose dramatically. And then the Federal Reserve stepped in and had two major quantitative easing packages that are put together. In other words, pumped a huge amount of liquidity into the financial markets, and that ignited a major rally on Wall Street, a major rally in the bond market. That allowed most major corporations in America and around the world that wanted to refinance debt or had to refinance debt to be able to do that. And many companies had record earnings as a result of that. Of course, that only tells a small fraction of the story, because small and medium-sized businesses in this country, who employ something like 95% of the American people, could not access the capital markets, could not go to their banks and get financing, and they struggled, as we heard in the previous reports.
And to that point, we saw decade-high bankruptcies last year. Some businesses are on life support, others are closed and unlikely to ever return. What does this sort of shift mean for the longer-term landscape when it comes to small to mid-sized U.S. businesses?
I mean, I think the real denouement of that is going to be seen in the next few months. Frankly, I know in China people don't really talk about vaccines, but here, vaccines are very much on people's mind, and the more greater percentage of the population that gets vaccinated, the more people feel like they can return to normal. Once people feel they can return to normal and go back out again into the world, many of the businesses that have really struggled during the last year, restaurants, movie theaters generally, any time where you have to have people congregate, concerts, I think that's all going to explode. And, if you can just sort of get there, if you're one of these small and medium-sized businesses, if we can just get to the summer when more and more people have been vaccinated, a critical mass of people have been vaccinated, I think you're going to see an explosion of economic activity. And many of these companies that were teetering on the edge will actually start recovering again very quickly. There was a reason that 100 years ago there was the roaring 20s in America after the Spanish flu pandemic, and I think we'll see another roaring 20s here in this country once everybody who wants to get vaccinated does get vaccinated, and this pandemic begins to fade as a national concern.
And as you mentioned, the ramping up of vaccinations, and now, of course, you have the stimulus measure that's now become law. Talk about the importance of the stimulus and what that does in terms of the momentum for the economy.
Well, again, the Federal Reserve can only help regulate interest rates, can only help people who can, the companies that can access the financial markets. And that's why, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jay Powell, has been saying for more than a year now that, we needed Congress to act and to provide fiscal stimulus to the rest of the economy. And now, as of literally today, this $1.9 trillion package has been passed. It's now law. That brings to about $6 trillion that Congress has pumped into the economy. Now, of course, there's no free lunch, so that increased the national debt, that increased the budget deficits. But this kind of stimulus, it's shown, generally speaking, will find its way into the economy, not perhaps as quickly or as fully as economists might think, but I think it's probably something that people absolutely needed. People who've been struggling in this economy absolutely need that money. And eventually, I think, the stimulus is part of it. What the Fed did is part of it. The vaccines are part of it. All of this is going to add up, I think, to a fairly roaring American economy for the next 6 months.
Now, I want to talk about some of the pivoting that a lot of companies had to do. Most of them ended up having to shift to more online sales. What are consumers buying now beyond the essentials, which they were doing in the beginning? And how has that wish list evolved? What are people more comfortable buying now?
Well, again, I'm not exactly sure what everybody's doing, but housing sales are up, car sales are up. People are sheltering in place, renovations are up. Obviously, online businesses like Amazon are doing gangbusters. Streaming businesses are doing great. I mean, if you look at Viacom, CBS, the stock, you wouldn't think that it would react as much as it has. It's up 4 times so far in the last year. So, yeah, a lot of businesses have record profits. Disney has record profits and stocks at an all-time high, even though its theme parks have been closed, but they're now beginning to reopen. So, I mean, this has been a bit of a mystery that has unfolded in fascinating ways that nobody could have predicted a year ago. And there have been some real winners and real losers. And I think that generally speaking, the American people have had quite enough of this, are sick of it, no pun intended. It's horrible, the loss of life that's occurred here, and it could have been so much different, and it should have been so much different. I think now, once we get people vaccinated, you're going to see just an explosion of pent-up demand, especially among the businesses that have lagged in this economy for the last year.
Well, I know everyone could certainly use that light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you so much, William Cohan, there, special correspondent for Vanity Fair. And he's also an American business writer. Thank you so much.